it's done.
Yep.
Welcome back, home church. How's it going? How's it been? It is great to be back in the house of the Lord.
Yes, sir. Kicking off season 2. Let's go.
I know. And this season, we are ushering in something new. So we are kind of playing around with video. So if it seems a little awkward, if it seems a little different, it's because we're trying to get the hang of being on camera and doing all this stuff. But we're still excited to bring new adaptations to the podcast because we're not just doing video. What else we got going
on? We now have a new editor, Zach Collins. Thank you, buddy, if you're watching. Has been running the audio through AI and editing everything to where it's more seamlessly cohesive is the right word I was looking for, and just making it to where it sounds better for our audience. And we are hopefully here in a couple of weeks going to be on Spotify, Apple, and Google Play.
So not only are we going to add video to the YouTube, so that way it's if you are a YouTube person, you are a video person, you are a visual person, and the slides just weren't cutting it, we're adding video to the YouTube to try to help with that. And on top of that, we are trying to make it to where if you're not a YouTube person and you're more of a podcast person, you're more somebody who likes to just lock the phone, put it in your pocket, and listen to a podcast. We're trying to make the podcast, we're not trying, we are
in the process
of making
more
it
user-friendly.
Yes. Yeah. So you don't have to log on to YouTube, click on the YouTube video, eat up your battery because we're sitting here talking for 3 hours,
right?
And you have to leave your phone on. So I mean, I think Android has a little bit better way of doing it than iPhone does because iPhone there's no way around it. But I think, well, unless you have like YouTube Plus or whatever. But anyways, regardless, we won't ramble on about that. Because there's a lot of exciting things happening at Home Church, not just with the podcast, but we have a lot of things happening. We've got Base Camp getting ready to come up.
Yep, at the end of October.
And then, so then there will be Flourish. But what we want to focus on, especially both of us being part of the men's ministry in Base Camp, we really want to emphasize the importance of Base Camp, and we know that Flourish is very important, and anytime that we have a female guest on, we try to emphasize how important not only finding like a family here, but finding women and finding men that you can get along with. It makes the journey so much easier, and it's something that as guys, we tend to be stone walls. We tend to be, hey, if they talk about sports, then hey, we've got something in common,
right.
and that's a way in. Sometimes, like me and Clay Woolley talk. Really, he's not a sports guy. He's pretty. I don't want to say plain Jane, but he's pretty cut and dry. There's nothing, he's not doing things crazy. He's just a good dad, a good husband. And he made the comment like, sometimes guys, it's really difficult to find somebody in church, and because we make mention about how we'll stay over after the sermon and just talk in the foyer and stuff like that. And he goes, it's real hard, to do some of that stuff when there's really nobody that you can talk to.
Right.
So Base Camp is all about realizing you don't have to be a sports fan. You don't have to be a football player. You don't have to be, this rough, tough John Wayne character to be what God considers a man. And so
but it never hurts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you can't be tough. I'm not saying, scrapes and everybody's a winner. I'm not saying that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that there's a simplicity to it, that communication.
Right.
It's
all the
communication.
Walls come down. Yeah.
And that's, one of the things that this podcast we wanted to do was help people open up, because it's important for a testimony to be told, but it's also a great step for somebody who doesn't necessarily like to be open and doesn't like to be public. You could sit here and talk to two guys, and it's recorded, so the millions of viewers that we have every weeknight, we'll be able to hear it. So But that's what base camp is. That's what base camp is all about. It's all about you're not going down there to experience some weird, crazy, freakish, religious experience. And I think that that's what people get caught up into. They want to go to these retreats and they want to see these things happen, and then that's the only place that it can happen is at base camp. That's the only time that you can experience God is at base camp.
Right.
And it's just simply not true. It's a great way to get guys out of their comfort zone, and we hope to see you guys there. So
Yeah, it is October 27th, I think, to the 29th, if I remember correctly.
And
So-
I mean, I think Leonard, unfortunately, will have to head out Saturday night, but I'm pretty sure they're trying to make it because of the women of home church. Corinne, thank you for stepping up in the media. A lot of us men that would rush back on Saturday night or Sunday morning.
Yeah, like we did last year.
Yeah, to make it here at 6:45 for all of this whenever we're 2 hours away. So,
Right.
Fortunately, some of us are going to be able to hang out Sunday and experience that. Like I said, though, unfortunately, Leonard's going to have to head out because he'll have to be here for Sunday service. But
Right.
I know that was another cool thing. So give a shout out to Corinne, especially in the media team, for stepping up and taking that responsibility for us. So
Yeah.
all right. Well, I know we tend to go long anyways, so we'll go ahead. I was really excited about this one because we've been gone. It's nice to have a little summer break. It's nice to have time with the family and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Right.
we
Well,
wanted.
big things happened over this last 2 months.
Oh,
so-
big things. The little one came in. We went ahead and accepted that care package, and she's still alive. So I think we're doing something right.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, she's chubby. She's adorable, but we had Willow was born, so needed a little breather there, and but we are back, and we're back with a vengeance in
Yes, sir.
season 2. Oh, there she is. There's the home church jersey. That was, I think.
A month and a-
20, I think that's 27 hours of no sleep at that moment right
Oof.
there.
coming in rough, bud.
But yeah, she was the little miracle child. So, but we're coming back with a vengeance. Season 2, tell us who our guest is for season 2.
The man, the myth, the legend. I'm hyping up myself for no reason, but me is I'm kicking us off this season.
As Ric Flair would say, limousine riding, jet flying. I'm not going to say the rest, but
Thanks, JB, over there in the
I love
in
our
the booth for us.
crowd. Oh, a live studio
Your
audience. Live studio audience. We are now accepting live studio audiences. You can't see it now because the camera zoomed in, but we are in the back corner. So all of the churches are facing towards that way. So you're going to be facing that way, applauding to nobody. We'll be back here. But I don't want to mess the chairs up because Jamie does a very good job of making sure that everything is
But
nice and
that
straight.
is a great idea if you guys want to come in and see what the podcast is actually like, and before you come on as a guest, more than happy to have you guys come in. We have a few guests booked already this season, but I mean, last season we had, I think, close to 25 episodes between the man cave and everybody's testimony. So I would like to get that many this season, if not more than that. So, oh yeah, and we're mobile, so expect a few off-campus podcasts. We have a couple things planned that we will surprise you guys later on in this season with.
And also, we are really one of the things that I wanted to try to focus on was making sure that people are comfortable whenever
yeah.
whenever they come here. So if there is, you're like, hey, I really want to do the podcast, but I really like the idea of the camera not being pointed on us. We don't mind doing if a camera is going to stop you from giving your testimony. Just let us know. Hey, I really would
Prefer just audio, yeah.
just the audio. We can have just an audio,
Right.
and that's not a problem. I know, like I said, it's you. Eventually, you have to come out somewhere, and so if your testimony is if you want to give that testimony, and the camera is what is going to stop you from it, I would rather you give your testimony and a couple of people get something that from just hearing it, as opposed to
Right.
nobody getting to hear it at all and it not moving them. Just let us know.
Yeah.
And this is something that is nice to do, the cameras, and we're blessed to have it. We're blessed to have somebody like JB to come in on Sunday and help us get it all set up and running. But again, if that's going to stop you from giving your testimony being on camera, don't worry about that. We can do.
We are
just an
very
audio.
accommodating,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So that was one thing that I was thinking about whenever we were on our break. And
thanks, JB.
bye, buddy. That was one thing that I was thinking about whenever we did that first podcast. Well, you were gone, and I did the one with Jessica.
Oh yeah, Jessica and Corinne.
And
Correct.
it was Jessica was a great. She powered through it. She gave her testimony anyways, but it was kind of
Nerve-wracking for her,
nerve-wracking, and
Yeah.
it was brought upon her last minute, so it was kind of like she didn't have a choice. So now that there is that choice, I don't want that to scare people away.
Correct.
So
And we can also have on our Church Center app, which is where we have an application to be on the podcast. I can have Jamie or JB add that to whether you would want to be on camera or not.
Yeah.
So
But so we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. We're gonna go back to the guest of the hour. So Zach, one of the things that I really love about you is I am not. When it comes to a calendar, when it comes to events, when it comes to stuff, Brooklyn's amazing at it. I'm not. So the podcast, one of the hitches in that was I know what I know as far as talking and stuff like that.
Right.
I know the mindset. I know all of the flow, the direction, the questions and stuff like that. But it was like getting it taken off was one of the things. Was kind of like, if it happens, if it's meant to be, it'll happen.
right.
And so whenever we talked about it that day at lunch, and we said, people have probably heard it a million times, but
Right,
whenever
yeah,
we were
yeah.
sitting there eating, and you made the comment for Christmas, you asked your dad for the podcast microphones, which we get to use when we're going mobile. We're not using now. We're currently using the church microphones. But I can't thank you enough for that. And so before we get into the testimony, I would just like to say a lot of this podcast, a lot of the reason that Zach 2,
Zach Collins.
Zach 2, Zach, I don't know, I'm not sure one yet. I'll come up with a good one for you though, Zach. But the reason that these things are happening, the reason we're able to go mobile, the reason that we have cameras, the reason that we have those wonderful intros, the backgrounds, all the pictures and stuff, is because of you. So I get the fortunate position of coming in here and talking. You're the background guy. You're the guy that whenever typically we were doing just the audio, I would ask you kind of towards the beginning, and then towards the end, I'm all the way through. So a lot of people didn't realize the importance, and they may have realized the importance, but just so everybody, I just want to say now that we're on camera and now that everybody can see the man behind everything, he is greatly appreciated, and I thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and get into your testimony here.
Okay.
And just kind of started off from the beginning. So I know one of the things that we typically ask, what your relationship was like with God, all of that, the road. Less traveled, though, is I would like to ask, when did you realize that home church that all of this, because I know obviously you were there for the split. This one's kind of a different scenery of the question, but this was just something that I felt led to ask you. When did you truly begin to sit back and be like, wow, this is crazy? Like a podcast, we're ordering jerseys, we're talking about Spotify and iTunes. When did that process begin to like, wow, this is crazy?
I don't know if it's really sunk in yet. Like the fact that all this is coming together so fast, and thinking 5 months ago we had the idea, and here we are 27, 28 episodes in is still kind of crazy to me. The fact that not only JB but my dad, Clayton, Pastor Clayton, and Pastor Jamie, if believed in us so much and just said, "Here you go. Here's all the stuff you need. Just let us know, and we'll make it happen." So it's still kind of crazy to believe that all that stuff has just fallen into place. So.
And so, with that being said, whenever you were a kid, whenever you were growing up, was Christ something that was prevalent in your home?
My mom has always followed Christ. We didn't necessarily go to church every Sunday, but I would say he was always there. My mom was always praying for us and stuff like that. We didn't necessarily, like I said, we didn't necessarily go to church every Sunday, but he was there. Yeah, he was definitely there.
And so, when you're a kid, where are you growing up? What's home life like?
Excuse me. I don't really remember a whole lot before the age of 5, and then at 5, things started getting kind of rocky. My parents split up. My dad moved back up to St. Louis. My mom got remarried, I believe, when I was 6 or 7. We ended up moving to Ava, and it was pretty solid there for a while. I mean, my parents fought like crazy for a long time. Unfortunately, they used me and my sister as pawns to get at each other and stuff like that. So, but it happens, unfortunately. And then it was just kind of standard. So.
And so, we've heard you talk about it before. We've heard you talk about you wore the purple that day for your sister.
Correct.
So as a kid, you and your sister, you're talking about the home life is kind of rough and kind of rocky. You and your sister, what's that relationship like whenever all of this is in the middle of it and it's the heat of it and it's going down?
There was definitely times where I felt like it was just me and her against the world. So she was definitely my best friend and continues to be my best friend. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love you guys. You, Brett, Leonard, Michael, Dalton, all the guys here. Love all of you guys, but she was definitely my best friend and always will be. But yeah, I mean, we bickered like siblings do. I mean, you know how it is. You have a sister too. But definitely growing up with her being, I believe, she was September, October, November. A year and 3 months younger than me. So we were real close, 15 months, yeah, real close in age. So if I was doing something, she wanted to do it, or vice versa. So when I started playing football, she had to be a cheerleader and, all that fun stuff. So we were close. I would pick on her all the time, but I would be the only one that could pick on her. You know what I mean?
And what'd you say the age difference was?
About 15 months, roughly.
And so, is that your only sibling?
No, I have a little brother, too.
And what's the age difference there?
Almost 13 years, yeah.
So he wasn't, like, the rough stuff he wasn't a part of?
No.
Okay. Now...
Don't get me wrong, he's had his own rough times and stuff like that, but that's, not my testimony to give.
Yeah, and so part of the thing with parents splitting up is, I I w- I don't want to say I had the fortunate. Looking back now, I had my parents split up when I was older. So being younger, my parents splitting, I don't know the effect that that has. Being a little bit older, it was kind of different for me because I was a home, I was a homebody. Um, I was pretty sheltered. My mom was my only friend, so that was something that kind of affected me differently. It's that type of, you're older and so you feel like you're entitled, so you
Right.
take it worse. As a kid, what's going through your mind as this is going down?
Uh, from like the fights and stuff, they sheltered us a lot from that. Um, Believe it or not, I remember, and I honestly can't say for 100% certain that this actually happened or if I just made it up. But we would always meet in Rolla because it's halfway between, Ava or Springfield, whatever we were living in at the time in St. Louis. So we would always do drop offs every other weekend, is when we would go see my dad. Excuse me, guys. I'm getting over allergies and all that fun stuff. So if you hear me coughing and sniffling and stuff, that's why. But if I remember correctly, my mom was picking us up, and my dad and my mom got into a fight. And I semi remember my dad powerlifting the back of our car because he didn't want us to leave for some reason. I could be making that up and could have dreamt that, all that fun stuff. But if I remember correctly, that happened one day. And then just, I don't remember a lot of that younger time, but until we were about 15 and 16, we were going about up to St. Louis about every other weekend.
And that's not, I mean, that's a trot.
Yeah, it was a lot of miles.
So whenever it's you and your sister and all of this stuff is going down, do you guys, are you talking about it? Are you conversing? Like, is this something that, or are you guys just kids and you're just doing kids things?
We were just kids and doing kids
Yeah.
things. I mean, the drive sucked, and we were trying to find a way to pass the time. Luckily, my dad got us into video games at a young age, so both of us had Game Boys and Walkmans and all the classic stuff.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
my sister was really big into NSYNC, and me into Britney Spears. I know before she went all crazy and cut her hair. But yeah, so we were just passing time, listening to music and playing games.
Poor thing getting knocked out by security guards. Brittany's just so. As you're going up, you're growing up, St. Louis back and forth, blah 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 blah.
Right.
When is it that you really remember as a kid, kind of reverting, or did you, in a way, towards Christ? I mean, was there ever a moment from divorce to high school, whenever you're just like, kind of something that maybe veered you towards Him just a little bit more?
Growing up, it was he's kind of there. My mom would take us to church, on the big three, Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving, stuff like that, the big holidays. But my first like impactful spiritual moment, if that's what you want to call it, was the summer after 8th grade, going into my freshman year of high school. One of my friends invited me to church camp, and for the first time, and that's where I first accepted Jesus Christ into my heart and all that fun stuff.
So that's just like something that's pretty cool with the guests that we've had on here. A lot of the times you talk about, the ones that had Christ in their home at an early age.
Right.
They go from, we were in church all the time, to high school / junior high, somewhere between there and junior high, like lost their way. Junior high and high school graduation, somewhere between there, they have another interaction with Christ.
Right.
And it's, then you get to high school and then you bear the reality of the world for 4, 5, 6 years, and then you find, you happen upon Christ again. So
Right.
it's just, I like to see, it's the similarities in it all. You know,
Yeah,
whenever you
yeah.
hear somebody talk about how they've had Christ in their house since a young age, so you go to camp, you rededicate yourself as somebody who not only did my parents have a divorce, but through the years, some relationships that scarred me. Whenever it comes to your parents getting divorced, did that have an effect on your relationship mentality, your marriage mindset mentality? Because I myself went to, why would I worry about marriage whenever 30 years went down the drain? You
Right.
know, two kids, you had all this. You know, you think about those things, and it's like, if that can happen to them, why would I want to put myself in those shoes 30 years down the road?
Right. Yeah.
And so I lived that lifestyle for a while. Did that affect you at all in that sense, in that mentality, or were you and your sister so close that you weren't really about relationships, you were more about friendships and family?
Um, I didn't really have a serious girlfriend until my senior year of high school, but I mean, the whole like divorce thing, my mom and my dad got split up when I was such a young age that that's all I knew. And then my mom's second marriage failed. Uh, I want to say the middle of my junior year. So that was pretty rough on all of us and stuff like that. And then a month later, we moved out of the house that we were in, 13 miles out of town, and then moved into town. So getting used to that and being able to walk everywhere and hang out more was kind of cool. Try to learn how to skateboard on city streets where Ava has a law to where you can't ride your skateboard on sidewalks. So fun fact there. But I don't know if they've changed that in the past couple years or not. But yeah, trying to me and one of my friends trying to run from a cop while riding a skateboard was not the greatest experience. But yeah, I mean, moving in town had a lot of advantages that living 13 miles out of town did not. So
What is something that out of and so I guess let me retrack here. So high school era,
mhm.
what's that life like for Zach?
uh, starting from like freshman and stuff like that, I was I mean, not popular, but everybody knew who I was, and I could get along with anybody. Kind of like now. I mean, everybody that knows me knows I can talk to anybody. I'm not always the most social person, but I'm not gonna, ignore somebody if they come up and talk to me. Wow, that got loud. But yeah, I mean, starting out as a freshman and sophomore, I was kind of a nerdy kind of guy, playing video games. I was in band there for a little bit, then started playing football more and coming out of my shell a little bit. So, and then my junior and senior year, kind of starting to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do with my life. So, yeah, overall, it wasn't a bad time. I would definitely go back and probably change some stuff, but overall, it was pretty good.
And so whenever you're graduating, what's your mindset? What are you wanting to do? Where are you going to go from walking off the stage with that diploma?
Unfortunately, the last semester of my senior year, I got senioritis, like super, super bad. So my GPA dropped from like a 3.2 down to a 2.4 real quick. So I lost A plus and all that fun stuff. But I wanted to be a music producer or an architect, and had the mindset that I was done with school for a little bit. I was going to take a year off and then come back, hit the books real hard, and make it happen. That didn't happen. So, yeah.
So what did happen?
Um, took a year off, came back, very quickly figured out that I still hated school. Going over the same stuff like gen eds and stuff like that was very tedious and boring for me. Going into some computer classes and stuff like that, realizing that it's the same stuff over and over, Microsoft Word, stuff like that. just the general stuff was very boring and took about a year and a half of gen eds, and just right around that time just was over it. And then I think about a year later my sister passed away. So
And so, in this year that you're taking off, where are you at? Are you Ava?
yeah,
Hanging
I'm in
out
Ava. Yep.
And so, that year you're off, and then you're gonna go back to school. Where are you going back? OTC or?
Yeah, I started at OTC, and then uh, realized that online classes weren't going to happen. Was not motivated enough, especially if I was working at Pizza Hut at the time, and was like, why study for stuff when I could be at work making money? So that wasn't the right mindset to have at the time, probably, but I figured, make money while I'm young, and then I can always go back to school. Nah, not the case. But anyway, yeah. So I just ended up working as much as I could and all that fun stuff instead of actually going to school.
And so, what's the closest OTC? Is it West Plains?
From Ava, it's about either West Plains or up here in Springfield. Yeah.
And which one did you?
I came to the Springfield one, the Springfield campus, to sign up and all that fun stuff, and then did online classes.
Oh, so you did online classes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was not motivated even to just do them from my house. So
And so, Ava, Pizza Hut,
mhm.
all of this stuff, and you said, school just wasn't your thing, and you said about a year after that, your sister passes away.
Roughly, yeah. It may have been a year or two, but yeah.
So in the time span from I don't want to do online classes anymore to your sister passing away,
Right.
what's happening there?
Just
Working,
Yeah,
grinding,
pretty much grinding.
making money.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Fell into the wrong crowd, started partying a lot, stuff like that. That's where I think, how you were saying most kids fall off in high school and stuff like that. That's kind of where I fell off.
but it's a tedious thing, right? Because the thing is whenever they're young, you want to protect them, and so you don't let them do these things, and they want to know. Like
Right.
I remember wanting to know, and whenever I would ask my mom, and she would give me the answer because I said so. There was a lot of times where why don't we want to do that?
Right.
I don't understand. I want to know. I'm not saying that I'm being
Challenging your
disobedient.
authority, yeah.
I want to know, why don't we want to do that? I want to know
Right.
what's going on with it. And so when you don't get that answer and you get told just you can't do, you get told that enough and you get freedom, and it's like, all right, here we go.
Right.
So that's another thing is, that fine line of when do you let them learn? And it's kind of one of those things where it's like at a young age,
Yeah.
the faster the better.
I think to where my mom kind of stepped back and was like, all right, just let him learn was, I think 6 months after I graduated, me and my mom were fighting a lot and stuff like that. We lived in a 2-bedroom house, and the thing couldn't have been more than 1,500 square feet. I mean, it was tiny. I could be exaggerating a little bit, but either way, it was tiny. And I had graduated. My sister was a senior in high school, and beforehand, I had the second bedroom, and my mom and my sister were sharing the other bedroom. So after I graduated, my mom's like, well, you need to either move into the living room on this cot because your feet stink and all this fun stuff, and I don't want you sleeping on our couch, and start paying rent. That way your sister can have the room, or you can move out, kind of thing. And then at the time, I didn't really have a job. I was kind of working at Pizza Hut part-time to where I kind of could pay rent and stuff like that, but it was just kind of rough between me and my mom. We were fighting all the time and all that fun stuff. So ended up picking up more shifts at Pizza Hut, saving up some money, and then one of my friends at the time and I got together and ended up renting a 2-bedroom house that was about the same size as my mom's place, but it was. I say I moved out. I mean, I moved out, but the house that me and him were renting were literally probably 700 feet from my mom's place. So her house was here. There was another house, and then you round the corner, another house, and then my house. So I could step out of my back door to my backyard and pick up a rock and hit her front door with it. So I constantly went over and liberated her fridge and stole her mower and to mow our yard and stuff like that. So I moved out, but didn't move out very far. So.
And so as this is going on, you know, you're living with your friends, all of that good stuff. We're gonna go into the more serious side of the story.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of start there. What is it that you remember the most about the day that she passed?
Well, I guess after I quit school, I guess it wasn't as soon as I said it was, because I graduated, and then she passed away in 2015. So she was almost done with college. She was getting her bachelor's or associates. I never remember which one's first, but she was almost done with school. She had a month left, and it was March 11th, 2015. At that time, I had gone through, good grief, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 different roommates at the other house that I was at. Got to the last roommate, which was one of my coworkers at Pizza Hut, and his fiance, if you want to call her that, he ended up, well, to spare you guys details, she basically trapped him into a relationship and stuff like that, and not a lot of good stuff happened there. And I'm like, you know what, this is a little bit too much for me. So moved back in with my mom, and I think it was about 8 months to a year after I moved back in that she passed away. So it definitely wasn't as soon as I said it was initially. But yeah, it was March 11th, 2015. And I remember waking up, because I was working nights at Walmart at the time, to a text message from one of our high school friends that was really close to my sister Afton, and said, "Hey, I heard Afton died. Did it really happen?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? No. Are you crazy? What are you on? You know, don't text me like that." Got really angry at her, yelled at her, and all that fun stuff. And then the text messages just kept rolling in. And then from, you know, some of her friends that I knew from college, a lot of our high school friends, it just kept coming. I was like, what is going on? Like, is this April Fool's that I don't know about? You know, what kind of sick joke are they playing? And then roughly, 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from my mom. And she's in tears, you know, telling me that the college called and that they found her, and she was collapsed on the floor, and she had a textbook in her lap, so she was getting ready for finals and all that fun stuff. But all I remember is my vision going black into like a pinpoint. Got up out of my bed and punched a hole in the wall, and me being stupid, punched the hole in the wall and hit the stud in the wall, and thought I broke some of my fingers, but yeah, so it wasn't a good day.
And so obviously you stated that she was at the college, so
Yeah.
that's why you moved back in with your mom's, because that room was there to.
Oh, no, sorry. At that point, she had gotten remarried a third time, and they bought a new house, and we're in there for about a year. So we had a much bigger, well, I say
Okay.
they had a much bigger house. It was a 2-story house.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so, are you still working at Pizza Hut? Oh no, you said
No,
Walmart.
I'm working at
You said
Walmart. Yeah.
And so, is this Ava still?
Yes.
And okay, so all of this goes down. What's your relationship with your dad like at this time?
Um, I mean, it's not the greatest, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, we definitely weren't as close as we are now. I mean, I would talk to him maybe 2 or 3 times a year, if that. See him on Christmas, Thanksgiving, stuff like that. I would call him and text him on Father's Day. The big
The big three.
holidays. Yeah, stuff like that. It wasn't. I wasn't mad at him or anything like that, but he wasn't prevalent in my life. So it was. It was what it was. So I was very self-centered and focused on me and stuff like that at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason that um, we kind of mash as well as we do, because we understand how difficult it is to let go of that stuff. And whenever you're self-centered and whenever things are about you and stuff like this happens, it can be a poor, poor, pitiful me. And you kind of pause your life in that moment and you don't move past that moment. It's like you're stuck at that age.
Right.
Whatever it is, your mindset is stuck there because it's so focused around you. Like you've got blinders around the world.
Right.
And like you said, anything that happens of the magnitude that does, it can do one of two things. You can throw a pity party, or you can be like, man, life's short. What route did you take?
It definitely took a while for both to happen, but
And
I
I'm
kinda,
not saying, when I say a pity party, I don't want to say you don't have time to grieve. That's not what I'm not saying there's no grieving allowed, but what I'm saying is there's grieving with the intent of I love them, I miss them,
right, yeah,
but I get this time to move on. And then there's the self-centered who is, why did this happen to me? It's me, 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 me. And whenever people are hurting around you, you're not there to console them as well. You're more worried about what could you get out of it.
yeah. I didn't really go through the pity party, me thing. It was more of a, I got to push everything down and be strong for everybody. So everybody came down from literally everywhere. Family I hadn't seen in 3 or 4 years came to Ava and stuff like that. It was cool to, sad but cool to see everybody and see everybody kind of drop, all the things that didn't matter. My parents still weren't, I was 24, 25 at this time. To see, my parents drop 20 years of bickering and fighting and stuff to come together and stuff like that. And then, there for the first like 3-4 months, I would make sure that I wasn't crying around anybody, stuff like that. There was definitely times where I went and pleaded with God that, she had all this stuff going for her. She had a 4.0, maintaining, 2 full-time jobs, so she was working 80-plus hours a week and stuff like that. She was a month away from graduating college, and she had, another 2 jobs lined up to where she could go and start a huge career in retail and fashion and stuff like that. But there was times where I was pleading with God that, why take her? She had everything going for her and stuff like that. I would gladly trade spots with her. Here I am working a dead-end job at Walmart, nothing going on. Don't really have a whole lot of friends that would miss me or anything like that. So, take me instead of her. So from there, the depression that I got was just insane. There was definitely times where I would just go to work and come home, go to bed. That's it. So, yeah, it definitely wasn't a fun time for the first year and a half, I think, after she died. So,
And so through all of this, and we'll kind of gear more towards, the present, kind of start sailing in that direction. So when all of this stuff goes down, obviously you and Caitlin aren't together yet.
No.
And the reason that I mentioned Caitlin is because for those of you that go to home church, you know that Caitlin is Zach's wife. For those of you that don't, you do know now. So congratulations, we all won today. But Caitlin's not in the picture yet, so you're kind of in this area, what I like to call the void area, because right now, you know, you're at home church, and so, you know, we're talking about the glory of God. So at that moment, obviously, if you're pleading, why not me? You're not praising the glory of God. You're, you know, if anything, you may have a little bit of like a why did you take her and not me attitude.
A lot of anger and rage. It wasn't praise or anything like that. It definitely wasn't praise you in the storm kind of thing. It was more like, I hate you. You know, you took my best friend. Why? You know, a lot of rage towards all of her doctors that she had. She had suit up that none of the doctors told us about, which is, for those of you that don't know, is a very rare form of epilepsy. It's the easiest way to describe it is that it comes on so hard and so fast that it basically is like a brain tumor that just erupts. So, or not a brain tumor, but a brain aneurysm that just kind of erupts. So, yeah, we found out that she had epilepsy when she was 9 or 10. So we knew for about 11 or 12 years before she died, and went to, I couldn't even tell you how many doctors, but not a single one told us anything about suit up and stuff like that. So,
and so we're in the void area. We're in the area of really not making progression.
Oh no, not at all. We're definitely backstepping and sliding and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
When is the moment that you dig your heels in and start fighting? Is Caitlin what helps that, or is it because you were able to dig your feet in, you were able to start that path towards Caitlin?
Through all of it, I honestly knew God was there. I just didn't feel him or see him, if you know what I mean. I got really, really tired of just working nights all the time. So I'd wake up probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, go to work at 10, and get off at roughly 7 a.m. in the morning. So the only time I ever saw daylight was when I was getting off of work, you know, and then I would be asleep an hour, 2 hours later. And then sleeping pretty much the entire time until about, you know, an hour, 2 hours before I had to go to work. Repeat, you know, 5-6 days a week. Gets very depressing very quickly. So I think a year and a half. See, I would be 24. Yeah, but a year and a half later, I was done. Just done of the depression, the being stuck at a dead end job that was going nowhere, you know. And I got, by my own mistakes, I got stuck in the dead end job. Made a few mistakes that landed me from, instead of being CSM, which is a customer service manager, landed me to being into a cashier on, you know, third shift and stuff like that. So that's my fault and all that fun stuff. But anyway, just woke up one day and said, you know, enough's enough. I got to do something. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be bad and I'm going to end up doing something that is going to affect everybody.
Now, before, I hate to pause here, but this is something that's important. We always hear the stories and the podcast and these interviews, and they're like, I just woke up one day and it was enough. I'd had enough. And then they continue with the story. Mm-hmm. And they never focus on that enough is enough part. There is an importance of enough is enough. And we could talk spiritually about it, enough is enough, you know, and you let God take over. But for those that aren't feeling spiritual in this moment, and we could sit here and talk about how good God is. And you made the comment before, and I felt that feeling before of, I know God's there, but it's just not for me.
Right.
Like, I know what everybody's saying. I'm not saying God's not real. I'm not
Right. Yeah,
belittling
yeah.
God. I just don't think I'm doing something wrong, and he doesn't really, I'm not, I can't receive his stuff for some reason. And it's a feeling of, you just, all right, then I'll get by.
Yeah. For me, it was more of still holding anger against him and stuff like that. I just wasn't ready to, forgive him. It wasn't his fault that she was gone and stuff like that. So I was blaming him for something he didn't do. But for me, I just wasn't there yet. I needed somebody to blame, and unfortunately, I blamed him. And I just wasn't ready to forgive him. Forgive him, and let go of that anger and hurt yet. So I knew he was there. My mom was praying for me constantly. My dad, all my family was praying for me constantly. My mom could see I was spiraling and stuff like that, and God working in mysterious ways. Have a love for dogs. Always have, always will. My mom gave me Max. So anybody that knows me and has been over to our house knows that our 2 dogs are, short of Caitlin, are, my world and stuff like that. Baby them more than I probably will our own kids. Just kidding. But, I'll be the dad that spoils everybody. But, but yeah, I firmly believe God saved my life through Max. So, and as weird as that sounds, yeah, God initially saved me through Max. Saved me from committing suicide and all that fun stuff through him. And then moving on, and like you said, working more towards the present, I moved to Nashville for a couple years. Again, tried to figure my life out and try to get into music producing and stuff like that. And my entire life, music is what impacted me, what drove me, what I was passionate about, that and sports. And I knew being a chubby kid, weighing 250 and
Amen.
weighing
Amen.
250, my freshman year of high school, I wasn't going to go anywhere any quick. Plus, I didn't have the dedication or the commitment to work out and grind every day.
Amen.
But I figured I could, make it in music. I had the dream and the passion to be a producer of some kind. Didn't have the talent to sing or play or anything. I could keep rhythm and all that fun stuff, so drums was my niche, and learned a little bit of guitar. But yeah, so being behind the scenes was always exciting for me. Moved to Nashville, very, very quickly figured out that if you're not in the right place in the right time and know the right person, it's not going to happen.
So I, as much as I like to do this, I would like to do it again. I'm going to trace backwards a little bit.
Okay.
And go back to the Max story and kind of intertwine that in with the enough, you just woke up one day and had enough. So you said that Max, you firmly believe that God gave you Max to help you. And I don't think that's crazy, because I think that he can do anything through anything.
Right.
And so to say that he couldn't do that through Max, I'm not going to say that it's not at all. I want to just kind of focus more in on why is it, what made you feel like that? Because whenever when you're like, enough is enough, I've had enough, I can't do anything, and there's that one constant, there's that one thing that is flesh, that a dog, a person. Yeah. So like, in my testimony, I talked about how Brooklyn I had just kind of disrespected her all those years,
right.
But then whenever we had nothing, I had her. God gave me her.
Right.
So God gave you Max in that moment. And whenever I was done with all of it, and I was done with myself and being selfish and all of that stuff, I was ready to be done. I had her. So to say that in that moment God gave you Max, I don't think that's crazy, but I would like to know what it was about Max that made you feel that way, because for people that are listening and they're thinking, I felt that way about this.
Right.
But I always thought people would think I'm crazy. what is it that made you feel that? Because I don't think that's crazy at all. Be just kind of, you don't have to go into extreme detail, but just what is it that makes you feel that way?
So I've always felt like the protector of my little sister. And, anything she ever had going on, I was always there to either fight her battles for her or, pick her up when she fell, all that kind of fun stuff. My mom's got a video of me somewhere to where she was crawling around and dropped her pacifier. And, us being so close together, I had one too. I took the one out of my mouth and gave it to her. So stuff like that. And then there's a cute picture of us floating around with us wearing different baseball caps for my dad and stuff like that. So I always saw myself as, in a way, her protector and, us against the world kind of thing, thick as thieves, We can do anything as long as we're together. So after she passed away and stuff like that, I felt like I had no purpose and stuff like that. And then with Max coming into my life, I felt, in a way, that he kind of filled that void, that now I have something to, or, someone to take care of. So he was constantly there, woke me up by jumping on my face several times, peed on my bed numerous times while I was trying to figure out potty training and stuff like that. The second night I ever had him, fun side story for you guys. Just got done working a 12-hour shift at Walmart. The one random shift that I picked up got me off at, I went in at 8 a.m. and got off at 8 p.m. So luckily my mom was watching Max and all that fun stuff. So little homie was excited when I came home and had I don't know if you remember McDonald's back, like old school Olympic days, where they had the 40-piece McNuggets. But grabbed me one of those on the way home, made a deal with the dude, put it on a TV tray in front of my bed. I'm like, hey, if you're fast enough and quick enough and you can get one of these, can't even be mad. But moved the TV tray probably about 5 feet away from my bed, and granted the TV tray was here and my bed was down here. Somehow the little dude, not even more than probably 1.5 feet long and little stubby legs, made it from my bed to the TV tray while I went to the bathroom and went to go grab some more barbecue sauce. Managed to jump up on the TV tray without knocking it over and scarf down probably about 5 or 6 of those chicken nuggets. So couldn't even be mad. I was more impressed that he, A, made it that far, and B, made it that far without knocking anything into the floor. So, couldn't be mad about that.
So Max was there. Max helps you get back on your feet.
Yeah,
So
got me
you-
from the depression, not out of depression fully, but out of depression to where I'm not thinking about suicide anymore.
Yeah, and the thing is it's funny that you make the comment about wanting to be the provider and the protector, because I think when it comes to the young adults, like, just the way that you and Caitlin, hospitality-wise, you want to take care of. I don't want to say please, because I don't think you guys are people pleasers. I think you guys are God pleasers, and through that, people get pleased. But you can see that there is a sense of providingness, protectingness, and so you were able to convey that to Max. You were able to provide for Max, protect Max.
Right.
So that was just something that I felt necessary to kind of vert, and we'll go back to Nashville, but I felt it important to vert back to, because some people may say that that's crazy. Some people may, I had this house plant and I started watering it, but it's true though. I mean, God will give you have to have baby steps, and your level of I can't do this anymore and give up is rock bottom and different places for everybody.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to lose everything to wake up one day and be like, I'm tired of living this way. You may have everything, be at church and all this stuff, and you're like, you know what? I'm tired of eating all these sweets. I'm a little heavy. I'm not at that point yet, so I'm not
I've
speaking to
been there.
myself.
Yeah,
I'm not
I've been
speaking to
at that point
myself
for a
at all.
while now.
I'm just saying I'm just saying that there's going to be levels of things in your life that you are going to wake up, and there's going to be a day where it's weird. God just is like, "Hey, you need to quit this." And you're like, "All right, whatever it is for you, Lord, I'll quit it." So
Right.
you don't necessarily have to be living in a basement, working third shift, no
Yeah.
friends to be at a rock bottom. That is rock bottom for some, but to some people are like, "Oh man, that's the life, working third shift in a I don't
Yeah.
have to see the light." Some people are built different.
Yeah.
But so we'll go back to Nashville, but like I said, I wanted for people to understand that it's really important that you don't take little things that God gives you for granted. Something as simple as Max.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here on a podcast right now praising and glorifying the Lord for it. So we'll go back to Nashville. You made the comment that unless you know somebody there and unless, money talks, as they say.
Right. Yeah.
So you're a cat coming from Ava who doesn't necessarily have the world by the horns. You're going to Nashville, this big scene. This is where your dad is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so whenever we'll kind of not necessarily backtracking because now we're kind of introducing dad into your life. So as we're down the road now, your sister's passed. You made the comment that you and your dad necessarily didn't have a bad relationship.
Right.
It was just he wasn't really relevant in it.
Right.
So, sorry. As you go to Nashville, what is it that obviously music.
Right.
Is it your dad that says, "Hey, kiddo, come out here, give it a shot, come stay with me"?
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
was it, "Hey, Dad, do you mind if I"?
Oh no, my dad wanted me and my sister to live with him from day one. I mean, there was straight out of high school. My dad was still living up in St. Louis. That's where he met my stepmom and all that fun stuff. He worked as medical device sales and stuff like that. So he would go in and fit people for braces and all that fun stuff. And ended up meeting my stepmom at a hospital and all that fun. Anyway, but yeah, straight out of high school, he was like, "Hey, come move up to St. Louis, and we'll pay for your college education and stuff like that." Nelly actually founded a college that does strictly just music producing and stuff like that. That's actually located in St. Louis. Went on a tour with him there. He's like, "Dude, if you want to go, just say the word and I'll go, and we'll make it happen, and we'll get you accepted and all that fun stuff." I'm like, I don't know. And at the time, I was dating my first serious girlfriend and stuff like that. Was madly in love with her and all that fun stuff. But different story for another time. So decided not to go, but fast track back to Nashville. My dad's like, "All right, stupid, let's try again, and we can get you enrolled in college here, get you a little know-how on the behind-the-scenes mechanics of producing and all that fun stuff instead of you just trying to wing it and stuff like that and hopefully getting hired somewhere." Tried that for about a semester. Again, realized that I hated school. Had to go back and try to do gen eds again because at this point it had been, 6 years, 7 years. I was 25, graduated, whatever that is. Of being out of school, forgetting, basic math and stuff like that. Well, not basic math, but you know what I mean.
Oh, JB left.
Algebra and geometry and all that fun stuff. Not that you necessarily need that for music producing, but, you have to have your gen eds. Realizing that I hated all that stuff and didn't even fully make it through, what's the word I'm looking for? Filling out an application all the way through. I did get accepted to one, but didn't even apply for classes or anything like that. Excuse me. Anyway, just moved to Nashville. Again, started working and stuff like that, just grinding and doing my own thing.
And so when you're going through this music producing and stuff like that, I don't think that it is, what's the word I want to use here? I don't think it's something to look past what are you doing now?
I went from Walmart to work.
Well, no,
What,
Zach.
what do you
What are
mean?
you doing now, currently? What has your father helped us with? What are we on right now? You are a producer of a podcast.
Oh,
Produce
yeah, producer of the podcast. My dad gave us our first mics for the podcast and bought us a startup kit and all that fun stuff for the podcast. Yes.
And so that's so Dad, if I know you'll watch this, thank you so much for being a fan, and B, a supporter and helping get this off the ground. And I know that it may seem simple, it may seem little, just a little microphone set and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
A little kit that cost them $100 for a Christmas gift, and it flourished. Flourished.
How many stories?
Yeah,
How many or testimonies? Not stories. How many testimonies?
Testimonies have been shared because of he, A, gave me what I wanted for Christmas, but B, believing in God and, taking that step in faith and believing in us enough that we wouldn't do something stupid and reckless with it, but actually follow God's lead and be able to share everybody's testimonies and stuff like that.
And we also would like to say too that Home Church is also very, very big supporter of us as well.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to make it sound like we're just saying that we've been on this all of our own. Home Church has
Oh, no,
not done
not at all.
anything.
Yeah.
But had it not been for the purchase of that equipment,
Yeah.
we would not be.
Able to get up
It
off
would.
the ground.
We would
Yeah.
not have taken off of the ground. So, just another big thanks, Dad, for that minor purchase. Just the miracles that it has worked through, the testimonies, the confidence that people felt after they've given their testimony, knowing that people aren't judging them. They've heard other people tell theirs, and people are people. And
Right.
so it's great to be able to experience that. And I think sometimes whenever the backgrounds are on and
Right.
we're introducing video, people tend to forget the roots and where they came from.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
don't want at all for you to think that device is not going to be in use because it's going to be our mobile.
Yeah. Yep.
But it is what has gotten us to this point. God, and I mean obviously God. I don't at all want to take him out of it, but
No, none at all.
so just a little side note and a thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we're
God
gonna
working through my dad got us up and running to what is now something that we believed could happen, but never fully. I want to say pictured it would happen this quickly. I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we talk about the reason that I wanted to talk about going to Nashville and making that is because you go to Nashville for two reasons. One, you're going to be all the way country music singer, this and this and this and this.
It wasn't necessarily country music, but I mean, not that
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
anything wrong against country
just
music.
music in general,
Yes.
but for the most part,
Yeah.
blues and country is where Nashville, Tennessee,
Yeah.
Grand Ole Opry, all that fun stuff. But you go down there with aspirations of making it massive, or you're just going to Nashville to live. I feel like I don't think you go there to be like, oh, if I work at a Subway and do this. So
No.
you have to have. Obviously, your dad living in that area doesn't hurt,
Right.
but you have to have some sort of moxie, some sort of drive to say to yourself, hey, Chris Stapleton, I mean, all of these big country singers,
Yeah.
this is where they cut their teeth at. I'm a cat from this area that was working third shift at Walmart. I'm going to go see what I can do. That takes something.
Yeah.
That takes more than just, I think I'll go do that, that. Because I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Get me going out of Springfield is a big deal, let alone out of state. I'm just not a huge, but that's uprooting and that's taking a massive, massive, massive leap of faith. And it will crush people or it brings them out for the betterment. So obviously, you're here talking about the glory of God. So what is it you didn't make it, but what did you take away from that experience? Because you had to
Like-
have taken something
Like
from
Nashville
that.
in general,
Just in the
or
whole,
just
the music,
whole,
the whole,
okay.
the all of it.
The music aspect of it, I learned perseverance from it. Like, okay, well, we're not gonna make it in the music industry. It's just not gonna happen. Met some really cool dudes and a lot of really, really cool girls and stuff like that that had a fire for music that I didn't even know was possible. Ended up, you guys have probably heard me tell this story, but I've met a dude that had played blues at the same nightclub, or jazz club, not nightclub, same jazz club for over 30 years, just praying and hoping that the right guy would come in and, take off. But at the time I met him, he was 75 years old and had just gave up on making it huge, and he was just doing it because he loved doing it. But yeah, overall, I just learned perseverance. I learned who I was, what I wanted in life, and started figuring out what was really important to me. So,
And we're gonna kind of veer the ship towards the Caitlin. So
yeah.
when is it that you go from Nashville back to here?
So I moved to Nashville when I was 25, and I was there for almost 2.5 years. So I was 27, almost 28 when I moved back. Moved in with my grandma because at that time she was in early stages of Alzheimer's and
Dementia?
dementia. Thank you. And the one expectation her and my aunt had of me moving in and all that fun stuff and moving back was that I had to help with what we called my grandma's farm. It wasn't really a farm; it was just 10 acres of land. So if a tree fell down, I had to help, take care of that with my uncle and all that fun stuff. Had to mow all the time, and just maintain a house like you would maintain any other house. And B, I would have to help take care of my grandma. So my aunt went to work, and then when she got off work, she would come over, make sure my grandma ate and all that fun stuff, and then I would have to come home after I got off work, and then just stay with her and make sure that she went to bed, she brushed her teeth, all that fun stuff. Took her medicine, just the generic stuff. So
And so how does that?
transition into Caitlin.
Yeah.
I had been back for about a month and a half. So, meeting Caitlin happened really quickly. We actually met online. Started talking for a while. She was kind of standoffish at first. I think she had been kind of hurt by some other guys and stuff like that, or just wasn't really feeling everything. Convinced her to go out on a date with me and all that fun stuff. We ended up going bowling for our first date. Our very first game, we tied, which is kind of crazy. And then she proceeded to dominate me like she does in everything else.
What was the tie? What was the score?
76 to 76.
Oh, I thought you.
No,
If you would have thrown out like 289 or 289,
not at
289,
all.
I'd have been like, we are not bowling together. So
No, we are definitely not like Brett. We're not good. But yeah, Caitlin is very competitive and very passionate about sports and games and all that kind of stuff. So whatever it is, she doesn't like to lose. Whether she's good or not, she's gonna give it her all. So.
And so you guys go out on a date. When was it that you were kind of like, this is something here?
Honestly, I knew I liked her from our first date. We kind of tested the waters on the first date and stuff like that. I'm not gonna say we made out or anything because that didn't happen.
Uh-oh.
But
Edit that out, Zach number 2.
our first date, we went bowling, like I said, and then we bet each other. The loser had to buy the other one ice cream. So, of course, she dominated me just like she does in everything else. But we ended up going to Andy's afterwards, and she got ice cream and one of those little cups of water. We were sitting in my car, and she went to go take a drink, and the lid popped off and spilt all over her lap. So halfway through our ice cream part of it, well, I don't know why I put ice cream in air quotes, the ice cream date section of that date, it looked like she just peed her pants real bad. So she loves when I tell that story. But yeah, to me, it was hilarious, and she was a good sport about it and stuff like that. She didn't freak out or anything. She just kind of brushed it off and laughed at herself, and then started talking about her dad a lot and her family and stuff like that. So I quickly knew that family was huge to her, like it was to me and stuff like that. The way she talked about her dad, it didn't fully click for me that he had passed away, because she never really said he was gone until our second date. It didn't fully click until then, but the way she talked about him made me kind of figure he was, because that's how I talked about Afton. So it was kind of like a fond memory kind of thing, to where, you know how you talk about it, like, hey, we did this and this and this, like it was yesterday, like we hung out yesterday. It was more like back when kind of thing. So that's when, I figured I started liking her. And then fun side story, the moment I realized I loved her was back at this time we had been dating for about 4 months, roughly. She was, like I said, I had to be at my grandma's house helping take care of her and all that fun stuff. And at this time, my grandma's dementia and Alzheimer's had really, really started kicking in. And she was reteaching my grandma how to play dominoes. So I have a picture of that on my phone, but I should have popped it up on the slide for you guys and didn't plan ahead like I should have. But anyway, she was reteaching my grandma how to play dominoes, and I took a picture of that. And at that moment, I was like, I'm going to marry this girl.
And so how long did you guys date before you?
6 months before we got engaged, and then we were engaged for 10 months, and then, excuse me, July was 3 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So whenever you're hanging out with Caitlin, you guys, you made the comment about her dad, how she talked about him, and Afton, how you talked about Afton,
Right.
So you guys had sort of a commonality with that.
Right.
Which Jacob, Caitlin's brother, was he a big influence on your life as well?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, Jacob Woolley works in the media. He also
It's
he's part of the greeting team, right?
Yeah, greeting team.
And this year he stepped up and he's going to be part of base camp leadership. The family is very, very close.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, but we went to the happening.
Yeah.
So I know that there's something about the Woolies that... Woodies, yeah. No, sorry, Clay. I was thinking Clay. The Woodies, that it's just, they make you feel like family no matter where you at. We were in Aurora at a church that we had never been to,
Right.
around a bunch of kids and nobody that we really knew. And Marcy made the kitchen feel like you were at home in a kitchen.
Yep. Made her feel like you were at Mama's house. Yeah.
And Caitlin made sure she was mother handing us, making sure we knew what we were doing at all times. And you look over and Jacob's working somewhere, toting something around. So
Then you got Brittany, that was the crazy art teacher and all that fun stuff. But yeah.
And so you're going into a family that family is family. Like whenever they say family, it's not just... it's Vin Diesel family. We're family, bro. It's real, bro. So these moments that I've just experienced with them, I can't... obviously you've been with her. That was just a weekend.
Right.
So is going from, really shutting kind of everything out, pushing and bottling everything out, to going to Nashville, hanging out with your dad. You know, you're finally getting that portion of your life back.
Right.
You
Yeah.
come back, you're talking to Caitlin. Caitlin is the way she is anyways, you know,
Correct.
loving,
Yep.
caring.
Yep.
Then on top of that, you meet her family.
Yep.
Was this at a pivotal time? Like, because the thing is you've been at your lowest, and a lot of people see the lowest and they think the next day you're going to have Caitlin and Caitlin's family. That's not happening.
No.
You went through trial by fire.
Yep.
You went to a point where you said, you know what? I'm not as cool as what I thought I was. You know, I thought I had this whole thing figured out. I don't have it figured out.
Not at all.
You come back, Caitlin's here. You go from Nashville, Tennessee to, and I'm not making fun of when I say this, but taking care of your grandma. I mean, that's not something somebody your age, hey, bro, you want to go have some beers? No, you know, I've got to make sure that my grandma's in bed.
Right, yeah.
And like I said, I'm not making fun of you, but that generation, that's their mindset. We want to go have some beers? No, we're not.
Yeah.
So in a sense, you've been brought down to your level. You've been...
Oh, yeah, humbled, definitely.
You've been humbled.
Yeah.
So a lot of people experience down and low, and then we talked about, you said to yourself, I've had enough. From that day to you're walking Caitlin down the aisle, from that day of I've had enough to Caitlin down the aisle, what was the time span from there roughly? And I know, like I said, we're not going to hit it right on the head, 3 hours, days, 760. I understand that. But was it roughly 3 years? 2 years? I mean...
From the day we got married to when I said enough is enough, it was probably about 4 years, roughly.
So not overnight.
No, not at all.
And not only did it not happen overnight, you didn't get what you wanted the easy way. You had to be humbled.
Yeah.
So we go from...
And I think, again, God, you know, me being the provider and, you know, wanting to take care of everybody, took it a step further from, you know, me taking care of Max to now me taking care of my grandma and stuff like that. So it was, you know, hey, you did good with Max. He's, you know, 3 or 4 at this point. Okay, now let's take it a step further and, you know, you take care of your grandma and stuff like that. So.
And then not only are you taking care of your grandma, because I think it's, you can just say, you know, you're taking care of grandma, you know, okay, well, that's, but it's not just you're swinging by for a couple of hours. I mean, this is, you're taking care of grandma.
Right, yeah.
This is, I mean, it's like Willow. I mean, it's something that you are going to have, it's a responsibility.
Right.
So.
Short of, you know, like wiping her butt after she goes to the bathroom and stuff like that. But yeah.
And so you're humbled. Then God says, okay, all right, you're ready now. Here's Caitlin. And that family, like I said, just an amazing family of providers. So to me, it's funny because Caitlin and her family are providers.
Yeah.
You are talking about loving to provide.
Right.
And so you have now the two leaders of the young adults that really, to me, was a godsend. Clayton and young adults. Clayton listened to me gripe and complain and cry whenever I didn't understand what God was trying to tell me. Clayton was the one that was there that listened to it. Whenever I did foolish things and I was like, hey, man, I did this, he was like, you're forgiven. Step up.
Right.
You got to step up now. And you guys really making it comfortable for what can be awkward. There's nothing more awkward than a room of people that you don't know, and they're all friends and you're not.
Right.
How do you make that comfortable? Oh, it's very simple. You treat them like they've sat there the whole time. You treat them like they've sat there along with those other people that have been here since the beginning. And to me, that was just amazing. How Brooklyn wasn't even there. but I went to the Christmas party at your
Right,
guys'
yeah.
house, and it was just me. But I felt like I was part of the family. I felt like I had been there the whole time, and even though Brooklyn wasn't there, I was still part of a family. And it's not that Brooklyn was there because she was like, boo, hiss. It was her schedule. She had to work. She did have to work. But still, that was for me somebody who can shy away. I open up very easily once I get to know you, but somebody who can for a while there be shy and timid. It's important that you have people providers there.
Right.
And so for people who are listening, who it's very important that you get plugged in at church. And I know this may seem like I'm straying away from Zach's story, but I'm not at all. It's very important that you get plugged in where you feel your gift is necessary.
Right. Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, and I know you can't necessarily speak for Caitlin, or I mean, may be able to. We've had her on the podcast. I can't remember which episode that was, but on season 1, I can't remember. It was Brooklyn. It was the wives.
The
together.
wives. I believe it was episode 3 or 4. So yeah, it was very early on. Yeah.
But you can listen to her testimony, wonderful testimony, and they also talk about their marriage. So I wasn't trying to cut that part of it short, the marriage part, but I knew, we had already done that, so I wanted to get into the early stages. But
Yeah.
I do want to talk about when was the moment that you and Caitlin were like, young adults is us, we need to step up and do this?
Ooh. I think once we, and I say we, like Clayton, Jamie, me, Caitlin, and Tamara and Caleb, were all having a meeting for like what could be leadership and stuff like that. Tamara and Caleb didn't want anything to do with the young adults at the time because they had so much going on with the photography stuff, and then at the time they were doing their clothing line, and they were running around with everything else that they were doing with the kids and all that fun stuff. And nothing against them for doing that and stuff like that. They were in a season to where they just didn't have the time and couldn't put in the effort that was required. And good for them knowing that their limit was where their limit was and not piling on more than they could handle. But at that time in that meeting, we knew that there was a need and we had to step up. So that's kind of where everything kicked off.
And so did you two talk about it, or was it just something both of you were just kind of automatically like, yeah, that's great?
I think we talked about it for all of maybe 30 seconds. Caitlin kind of looked at me. I looked back at her, and she does this thing to where she kind of like side eyes me to whether or not she can tell when I'm like mentally freaking out, and she didn't see me freaking out, so she's like, "Okay, yeah, we're good. We can do it." And at the time, we didn't realize what an undertaking it was going to be. Not that we don't love being the young adult leaders and stuff like that, but it sometimes, takes a little bit more work than I think what we initially thought. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're just gonna, hey, Friday nights, this is what we're doing.
right,
Be there, be square. I mean, it takes planning because not
Yeah,
only it's young adults, so a lot of us are just new parents.
right,
I mean, obviously Natasha and Brett, not as new as
the
me.
skilled homies.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but Leonard and Mandy, I mean, you've got all of these with younger kids.
Right.
So it's not just easy to uproot baby Tate and go here.
Right.
So it takes some. Okay.
And then
so,
not to mention everybody's got jobs and
yeah,
stuff like
and
that.
so you take
Yeah.
all that stuff into consideration, and it's not just one of those things where, hey, we're gonna meet here, and said and done. It's you take
Right.
okay, so they're gonna have this and this. People are gonna want to. It's a Saturday, so you've got to base it around this time. So
Right.
it's not just something that you just roll dice and you're like, all right, that's where we're going. It does take planning, and it does take immense hospitality to be able to organize something like that with communication. This is where we're going. This is what time. This is, here we're eating here,
right.
here. So just wanted to say thank you to you guys, and it's just funny how you tell that story, and you can just see how Caitlin is and how you are. You want to provide, you want to protect, you want to. I don't want to say shelter because that's not the correct word to use, but you want to provide a form of comfort,
Right.
and ease, and you want to take people's problems away from them and sort of introduce a different mindset. We're community. We're doing this together,
Right, right.
So if you need your kid watched, and that's another thing, people don't realize with those kids how often you guys are babysitting because X and Y are going out on a date night. So hey, please bring the kid by. We're more than happy to watch them.
Yeah.
If we'll watch them overnight if you want us to. How many times have I heard that with Bridget? Yeah, we'll watch her for the night. And
Yeah.
so, that's not something. Again, I know that.
I'm not gonna lie. The first time we ever did that was rough. love Bridget and Jace. Nothing against them, but yeah. Bridget was not having it, and Jace wasn't happy not being at home and stuff like that. So, them being overnight for the first time in a new house and stuff like that was a little rough. I think I slept maybe 3 hours that whole entire night. So, but yeah, it was a learning experience for me, and it was a good time overall, a lot of fun and stuff like that. So,
And whenever we talk about the young adults and all of the leadership there, one thing that we like to do, and I skipped it, and it just now occurred to me. So we've talked about what all Caitlin does here for the church with the kids and everything else. What is it that for those that are watching, and this is season 2, is their first season that they've ever watched? What is it exactly that you do here at Home Church? What hats do you wear?
oh, where to start actually? Kind of on the greeting team. Sarah's called upon me a few times for that when everybody else has been out of town or last minute, something comes up with Beards and Riffs with Nathan and she has to go help. And then, so kind of on the greeting team, on the media team, doing lyrics and starting to learn sound and the production and stuff like that. I've helped out with youth a few times before, but nothing against youth, but that's just not really where my heart's at and stuff like that. But thankful for all of you guys that do that way.
I hear they have a great preacher.
Yeah, I hear
youth
great things
pastor
about
is-
Wednesdays. But yeah, it's just not where my heart's at. But I'm glad that it's thriving and people are stepping up the way they're stepping up. So I hear nothing but great things about you guys on Wednesdays and stuff like that. But if I wasn't working, second shift, I probably would be coming in on Wednesdays and hanging out with you guys a few times. And then, base camp leadership in the men's ministry and stuff like that. I've been a huge part of that since day one, taking off. So, not that I, started the men's ministry here, but I had a huge hand in it with Nathan Winfield and Clayton and what's his name? I'm terrible with names. Sorry. He used to be a cop.
Oh, Dennis.
No, not Dennis. Dennis never came to Home Church. He once the split happened, he went to Ozark. Big guy. I can't remember. His son used to be a huge Bills fan. He's got a son and a daughter. He used to be a cop. I can't remember what his wife does.
Are they the ones? Does he have his own church now?
Yeah.
The
Massengills.
Massengills, yeah.
Yes, Massengills.
Jason Massengill.
Jason, yeah. So Jason was a huge part of initially kicking off the men's ministry. Sorry, Jason, for forgetting your name. But yeah, Jason, Winfield, Clayton, JB, and I all came together and wanted to start the men's ministry and fire up base camp up again and stuff like that. So going from knowing absolutely nothing about men's ministry to, help leading base camp and some Bible studies and stuff like that was huge.
And one of the things that base camp and the men's ministry, again, I gonna beat the dead horse again like I did at the beginning of this, but men's ministry is just so important because of the fact that men think they're so tough, but they're so brittle.
Right.
And that's the sad thing is we break. Instead of bending and instead of, just going with the flow, like you said, we have to stiffen up and we have to be the provider, the protector. And in all honesty, yes, that's what we're called to do. But at the same time, if we don't expect God to be our protector and our provider, I mean, we're kind of dead in the water, So to realize as a man how weak you are is truly humbling.
Right.
And to walk in the church doors every Sunday and understand if you have a family and a wife, bringing them in here and being like the mindset of this is part of my job. This is part of my I am to help my family. This is the environment they need. That is so much more important than how many push-ups you can do. I mean, don't get me wrong.
So 0, so I can do 0.
But the thing is that, we're told to be tough and we're told to accept it. And you do have to be tough. You can't be fragile in this world. This is the thing is you hear everybody talk. You don't have to be a fighter. You don't have to be, I'm not going to go to jiu-jitsu classes, But the thing is you have to realize this world isn't intended to be easy. So you're going to fall up against stuff, and it's who do you fall up against? Who do you lean on?
Right.
And that is something that I loved about from day one. Base camp, that's nailed into your knowledge is if you're not here for God, if you're here for a weekend away, that's great. That's great. But we've also look who's here with us.
Yeah.
The peacemaker. So to be a part of that last year was an amazing experience, and to see what it is that God can do with just 3 days. And people tend to, like I said at the beginning, that's just a base camp experience. We're here to try to get you to understand that base camp is throughout the year.
Right.
And Winfield said it the best. I'm going to give Winfield a shout out on this. Base camp isn't something that was intended to just be a once a year.
Yeah, a once a year event. It's a lifestyle.
It's an ideal, a lifestyle. And it's a way for it is a getaway, but like Pastor Clayton said last Wednesday service, the praise and worship, you can talk about woe is me all day long, but there comes a point where you have to go, you know what? He's filled me up. I'm filled up. Yes, I'm tired, but if I continue to focus on not getting filled up, you can't, you're dead in the water. So that's what base camp does. It helps to fill you up so that way base camp can last throughout the year.
Right.
That's why we get the devotions. That's why we get, the shirts that say base camp on it. And it's trendy and it's cool to have that shown.
Have the merch and all that fun stuff.
But you can also look at that and remember what you got and what you took away from that weekend. And me, myself, and I want to ask you this question. I know last year for me, my cup was filled because we knew that Willow was on the way.
Right.
So I went into base camp excited. I mean, I think we we got about the same amount of sleep as what we did at
Yeah, roughly.
at the happening. Probably
Yeah.
about 8 hours for the 3 or 4 days we were
Yeah.
there. But
I think I got a little less than you did because I heard you snoring like an hour before I actually went to sleep. But yeah.
But for me, I went filled up, and I was able to see that experience. So that was the very first base camp that I went to was the cabin. So basically 2 base camps ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was my first experience, and it was really good for me to get in the water and get the water warm and
Right.
and comfortable. And so that set up the second base camp for, I know my purpose, I know these guys, I'm
yeah.
comfortable in my own skin here. How many base camps did it take for you to get there?
To become a leader, it was from 0 to straight to 100. So my very first base camp, I was a leader. So it was kind of crazy to go from never being to being behind the scenes and being a leader. So
How many base camps have you been to?
2. This year will be 3.
And so whenever we went to the one in Arkansas, the cabin, we had the separate room and had all the games and stuff set up.
Right.
And Dennis is out there already cooking for the next day, for the morning and all that good stuff. The atmosphere of base camp is something that if you're in the mindset of a relaxing mode, it's so fun. Like, it's
Right.
so fun. But when you're in the work mode environment, there's guys that are shoulder to shoulder with you,
Right,
and many
yeah.
hands make light work. So Dennis
And man, is
owns a
there lot of work.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Winfield used to manage a restaurant, a kitchen. So you're in the kitchen and you have Winfield communicating with Dennis, Dennis communicating with I've worked at Lambert's before, but I'm far from remembering what that was like to be a
Right.
cook. I just kind of blurred those memories out of my mind. But Dennis and Nathan are very good about not getting angry and not pushy. They're not,
Right.
they understand you're willing to help. They're very good at communicating. So
Right.
if it's something, I know Jacob stepped up, Leonard stepped up. We had a lot of guys.
Brett has stepped up.
Brett
yeah.
stepped up. A lot of guys that have stepped up and wanted to join as part of the leadership. And I believe Malachi is coming this year.
Yeah, the cutoff. Well, I say the cutoff. The start of the cutoff is 13, so I think Malachi is right at that cusp now to where he can come.
And so Malachi 13, you have how old is Jackson?
I believe he's 11, so he's got a few more.
So
years.
he'll have a few more
Yeah.
years. But basically, we are getting ready to usher in a new era of, if they wish to go,
Right, yeah.
But I would assume if Chris is going to go, Jackson's eventually going to want to be there with
yeah,
Dad.
yeah.
So we're going to usher in this new younger age. So it's not just going to be us being kind of the young guns.
Right. Which I also kind of feel like there's this slow transition from Dennis and Winfield to, me, you, and Brett, and Leonard, and Woody. So I feel
I forgot about Woody.
Yeah, not that Nathan and Dennis are stepping down by any means, but I feel like, they want all of us to be more involved. That way they don't feel like they're having to do everything.
Well, and that's the thing. It's shouldn't be, I'm not going to say that it shouldn't be a hassle, but it shouldn't be miserable.
Right.
And I feel like Winfield and Dennis, their businesses are taking off. We're probably way past our halfway point.
I have no idea.
But I was going to do a pause and a shout out for our sponsors. But
yeah, speaking of sponsors, yeah, we have a few new ones this year. I say a few new ones. We have coming soon is actually our first official sponsor instead of us doing shout outs. Nathan and Wayne are going to be our official first sponsors with Beards and Riffs. So they're going to be the official beard care of the Home Church podcast here pretty soon.
But with that being said, Winfield, Beards and Riffs, big shout out there. He's like he said a couple times, burning the candle at both ends,
Oh, yeah.
running here and there ragged for beards and riffs, and then Dennis. I mean, some of the freshest, best food.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm gonna say Brick, and then I'm gonna let you finish the end of it because I mix the two of them up all the time. Which one's Dennis?
Street.
East Street.
Yeah.
Okay. So Brick Street Barbecue
In Ozark.
in
Yep.
Ozark downtown. If you're ever down there, it's amazing. The hamburger with pulled pork is what I got the last
Ooh,
time,
yeah.
and that was delicious.
I always get the Philly cheesesteak. It's phenomenal. And he's got it with steak and or chicken. If you get both, you got to pay an upcharge, which is fine for a fat kid like me. But, the steak is always solid. So everything there that he makes is just solid in general. But, yeah, that's always my go-to.
And I'm not trying to stub the toe of the podcast, but we are going to go ahead and start to kind of land the
Okay, yeah.
plane.
I mean,
So I've got a final few questions though, and this one is going to be one that if you need a minute to think about, that's fine. But we talked about we're going to go from the beginning of the podcast, and we're going to go from where we ended last, right before base camp, from trial to trial, fire to fire, losing
Right.
your sister, all of this stuff. You have your trials, you have your ups, I've been humbled and I've been blessed.
right.
I've been humbled, then I've been blessed. So one of the things that you and Caitlin have been praying for and are ready to receive is a child.
Right.
So one of the things as somebody who we went through the wanting the child process, and there are the times where you wish to give up. There are times where you're hearing the prayers and all that good stuff. So I don't know where mentally you guys are at with it, and I'm not asking you to say, but this is my question. As this not necessarily being a trial, but as this being something that you're ready for your next step. So you had Woody, then you had your grandma, and then you have Caitlin,
had Max, grandma, and then Woody came
or sorry,
about a year
Max.
ago.
Poor Max. He's gonna be mad at me. But you step up. It's stepping stones. You're
Right,
preparing
yeah.
for the next step, and so your guys' next step is the child. I mean, that's
Right,
that's
yeah.
kind of the next.
Yeah.
That's the step. So
I feel personally for me, I feel like it's gonna be Max, grandma, Caitlin, Woody, sidestep, new job, then baby is.
So
probably
that
what's
was
gonna
my
happen.
question.
Yes.
You guys, you're in the mindset now of, okay, we wanted, we don't have, there's a reason.
Right.
And so you just made the comment, job, then. So
Yeah.
you guys are, okay, we've got this and this and this that we need to fix before
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, you guys have went through the waiting process and you've been humbled. There's stuff we've got to fix.
Right.
There's stuff that we've got to do before we can have this blessing in our life.
Right.
And that was going to be my question. Where were you at with it? But you kind of answered it yourself. I mean, fairly quickly.
Excuse me. I kind of feel like there's still some growing up I have to do a little bit. Yeah, so we'll just leave it at that without going into a whole lot of detail because we could be here for another hour, hour and a half. But yeah, I feel like there's some growing up I still have to do a little bit. Not necessarily like I'm acting like a kid or I'm being selfish or anything, but there's, I would say growing up in faith that I need to do. Definitely learning patience through all of this because not only are we in a society of like, hey, you get what you want when you want it and like right now kind of thing. So definitely some patience that I probably still need to work on getting and stuff like that. And then definitely listening to God. So, which is a humbling experience in itself because there's, God definitely talks in whispers, throughout eternity. He always whispers and stuff like that. But as anybody that knows me knows that I don't always listen right away. I'm very good at being like, yeah, okay, cool, and it goes one ear and out the other. But yeah, so so need to grow up a little bit.
And whenever you say grow up, I mean, it could be as simple as, I mean, I know what you're talking about. Used to, whenever I wanted a pair of shoes, I just bought them.
Right.
Growing up is realizing I like those shoes. I'd like to have those shoes, but financially, does having shoes right now make sense? If you're selfish, that thought process doesn't even enter your mind.
Right.
Growing up, that thought process is there, and you're like, you know what? Let's think about this for a minute.
Right.
That's growing up right there, and you're like, come on. I mean, really? But it is.
Yeah. The $60 shoes that could get me, gas for the next 2 weeks and, some food. So.
And whenever you're young and you don't have kids, and I shouldn't say you don't have responsibilities, because obviously you have a home, you have a wife.
Right.
But when you don't have something else that requires attention, you don't have that extra money that has to go towards that.
Right.
So it is kind of, you get used to that. Well, we don't really have to worry about, because we don't have. But the thing is if God give you a kid and you're still in that mindset,
oh yeah, it wouldn't be good.
It doesn't happen.
Right.
So, but that's something that's important, is realizing you're humbled. You've been humbled.
Right.
I realize we've got growing up to do. So maybe not. I shouldn't say we, because you said you just said you. But so that was one of the questions that I was going to ask, and the next one is, one of the things that you started and implemented towards the end of last season was, there were things that you would say, is there anything that you need prayer for? Is there anything that we could be?
Yeah.
So I know you're one of the hosts, but today you're the guest, so you're not there to ask the question, so I'll ask the question for you. What is it that we could be praying for Zach and Caitlin, or Zach, or?
I think for Zach and Caitlin, for us, it would be that we just have patience, trust God's timing, and that he's never late. We just, when we want him to move mountains, we get upset when he moves it, boulder by boulder or rock by rock. So patience in that aspect. And then for me, it's just working on my relationship with him. I don't do daily devos or just spend the time with him that I should. So my biggest fear is that I'll die, and go up to heaven and be like, turn away from me, I never knew you, kind of thing. So just that my relationship grows stronger with him. So I've kind of slacked a lot lately when it comes to the daily walks and talks with him. So.
And whenever you talk about, is the anything that we could pray for, and you made the comment that patience, and you said boulder by boulder.
Yeah.
God's still working. You just don't see it like you think you want to see it. So he's moving it piece by piece. Whenever you're getting ready for whatever it is, serving here at church, whenever you do wear multiple hats, one of the things that can happen is you get wore out.
Right.
And so on top of life, on top of learning patience, sometimes, you got to be here, you got to be here, you got to do this and this and this. You can get burnt out. For those that are watching, and they may be in a season of being burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
they may be in a season of, we just had rest from the podcast.
Right.
They haven't had their rest yet. For those that are in the waiting, for those that are kind of having a struggle with patience, what is some advice that you would give them that is really fresh in your mind, that's really helping you?
That honestly, that you're not in it alone. So whether you're, in a valley, or you're on a mountaintop, or you're in the middle of that climb up or descend, either way, God's always the same. Whether you're on that peak, in the middle of the climb, the descend, or in that valley, he's always there. So he's never changing. He's the same God that he was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So it's never changing. So, and if you're in that dark place like I was, 8 years ago, uh, my favorite Bible verse was Psalms 23:4, and it continues to be my favorite Bible verse. That even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for your rod and staff they comfort me. It's that basically it's the one sheep that goes off and come back. He'll chase you, like Dana said, almost a month ago now, with the picture on Sunday that he was fully sprinting after the one sheep. It's even though you could feel like you're 1,000 miles away from him, he's running after you. So,
And I will, I guess, sort of wrap it up with this question and sort of finale. Whenever it comes to your future with, as far as like the young adults and base camp and stuff like that, what are you looking forward to like, is there something that God's really put on your heart for any of the things that you serve here lately that you're really just on fire for lately?
base camp is always, like, the men's ministry in general has always been huge on my heart, because growing up I didn't really have that with mine.
So you take base camp.
Way probably more seriously than
Well,
everybody else.
I mean,
well,
you-
not that everybody else doesn't take it seriously, but
Well, no, I meant you take it as it's supposed to be. Base camp isn't
Yeah.
just, okay, October's coming around, we got to get ready for this meeting.
right,
We
it's
got to
just
get
another event. No, it's really impactful for me, because not that my dad wasn't in my life, but he wasn't there 24/7 like dads should be and stuff like that. Granted, some of that was by my choices and some by his, and whatever, another story to tell. But yeah, so base camp and that brotherhood is really impactful for me. So yeah, I'm really excited about the men's ministry and then coming together with Impact and all that fun stuff. But as far as the young adults, Caitlin and I have been talking about changing it from young adults to young families. So most of us are in that stage to where we're starting to have kids and being new parents and stuff like that. Granted, Brett and Natasha are in the thick of it, and excuse me, I have now have a toddler and all that fun stuff. But unknowns to Dalton and Lacey, we're gonna ask them about becoming the young adult leaders and transitioning the young adults to the young families.
so having like the college aspect and then the family aspect.
Correct.
Right on. So before we close, what is something or is there anything that we didn't cover, or something, if that's a no, just something that you feel like people should know about you that they may not know, or something that you're just like, hey, I'm self-conscious about this. I'm, this and this and this. Like, not a public speaker, so I don't like talking.
At all.
Yeah.
I am definitely not a public speaker, but a couple Sundays ago, I did talk to Dana, and I'm going to start doing spiritual moments after worship and stuff like that. So getting out of my comfort zone there a little bit, getting in front of the congregation, as often as I have. Even 5 years ago, I would have laughed at your face and stuff like that. So looking back, just 8 years ago from when my sister passed away till now, it's just amazing to see what God can do in just 8 short years. I say short years, but it's hard to believe that it's been 8 years since she's been gone. But going from the lowest of the low and in the darkest place of my life to now being and seeing things that I've prayed for come to fruition and actually happen is amazing. And I have nothing to say but God. So
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. This is episode 1 of season 2. How's it feel?
It feels good to be back. I'm excited about the season, and we have a lot in store for you guys. Excuse me.
We would like to thank you for giving your testimony, because it's like you said, whenever it's something, getting up and talking in front of people, a camera, it can be
nerve-wracking.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And so for somebody to come on and give their testimony, A, is a big deal. B, is a big deal whenever you put a camera on.
Right.
So would like to thank you for giving that testimony, and so that way people realize who we are. They understand what we've got going on in life. They understand that whenever they come into church, we've said it before, and they are smiling, they may not be happy. They may be going through a lot right now. So for people to come in and sit down and just kind of give you a hunk of them for a minute and let you sort of just dissect it and understand what drives them and all that kind of good stuff is what this was intended to do.
Right.
And so, again, I know that some people may be like, oh, well, he's been on the podcast. It was easy for him. It's not always easy to open up and talk about feelings and stuff. So for
sometimes it's a lot easier to talk about somebody else's story than it is your own.
Oh, yeah. And then it's even more difficult to realize that a lot of these people that are going to watch are going to see you on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And so that begins to be like, what are they going to think about if I say this and if I say this? So, again, thank you. And for everybody that watches, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
We can't wait for all of the new things that are beginning to sprout, that God is just working through, and everything. It seems like this podcast that has happened, it's not even been a year that we've...
No, it's, I think, literally been like 6 or 7 months, if that. It was February, March-ish when we started season 1. So,
and it's from that to this is pretty cool. And we were, I wouldn't say cramped, because I really enjoy being back over there.
We weren't cramped by any means, but it was, if nothing else, the $100 set that my dad got us, we got some really cool selfies out of. So even if we don't use them for the mobile stuff like we plan to, if they don't necessarily work like we want them to, if nothing else, we got some really cool selfies and some cool stories out of them.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things to me that's been just crazy, is how it's just taken legs, and it's not...
Right.
I mean, but I guess I shouldn't, from my point, it's not like I'm out there, talking about it all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm doing a whole lot of, marketing out there.
Right.
But, so...
Yeah, that's kind of where I come into play.
Yeah, and I don't see that side of it. But still, I mean, months. We're talking months. It's not even been...
Yeah.
And it's just leaps and bounds. And we thank each and every one of you, not only for coming on and giving your testimony, but for listening, taking the time out of your day. We know that they're longer. We are going to start doing... We didn't get one done today, but we're going to do a part 1 and a part 2 if we go longer into it, just so that way you're not stuck on the same thing, which it'll help having actual Spotify and Apple. You're not watching on YouTube the whole time.
So it doesn't drain your guys' batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so that's what, if we're going to go long, we're going to start making a part 1 and a part 2. But we are glad to be back. We thank each and every one of you. I am going to go over there and amongst the process of shutting this thing down. So Zach has whatever last comments, whatever promotions, whatever things, Zach is going to do those now. Thank you, guys.
And again, if you guys want to come on, you can go on the Church Center app and fill out the application, like I said, on Facebook. Or if you guys want to come find us on Sunday, church service starts at 9. Nathan and I, most of the time, are here early because we are both serving on the media team and all that fun stuff. But otherwise, don't be surprised if I come up to you and try to set up a date to where you guys can come on the podcast, and 100% no pressure. And you can tell us whether you want to be on video or just audio. So either way, it's no pressure, very laid back, like you guys saw today. If you don't feel like answering any questions, you don't have to answer any questions, and you can tell us what's off limits, what you would like to talk about, and what part of your story you want to get across and all that fun stuff. So, again, thank you for the opportunity of this podcast and all that fun stuff. It's been really, really cool to see God work through this podcast and all the testimonies that have come out of it and all that fun stuff. So, again, thank you, Pastor Clayton and Jamie and my dad and, my parents, my mom, everybody that's been on. It means a lot to Nathan and I that you guys believe in us and this congregation believes in us, and just to see how far it's reaching and impacting everybody is outstanding, and knowing it's all for God is just amazing. So we love you guys. Thank you for believing in us, and stay blessed.